You, finding life rather dull, dreaming again of exotic places, wishing you were somewhere else, we offer you escape.
I've seen the world, done it all, had my cake now. Diamonds brilliant and brilliant now. Hot summer nights, mid-July, when you and I were forever wild. The crazy days, city lights, the way you'd play with me like a child. Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful? Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful? Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful? Will you still love me when I'm not young and beautiful?
When I was outside on my first spacewalk, I was on the dark side of the world over the Indian Ocean, and I shut off all the lights in my suit to let my eyes adjust. And as I came south of Australia in the darkness, we drove through the southern lights, and they were like pouring underneath my feet, and you could see all the colors of it. And I mean, I'd seen aurora from on the surface of the earth, but to be amongst them, to actually directly be part of that interaction between the sun and the atmosphere and the magnetic field, all right there visually, like a prism or a rainbow or something, that was a real reality check of how it's all related, and how the energy of the sun and the protection of the atmosphere and the focus of the magnetic field all work together. It really showed me that this is a system. This is a planetary system. This goes on all the time. Most of the time, though, we just don't see it. But this is going on constantly, all the time, how all those things work together. From orbit, you get that type of perspective. You see the fact that this is a complicated system that is subject to a lot of influences that is going on all the time. One of the influences that is affecting Earth itself, of course, is the beings that are living on it. Volcanoes erupting, but also the plant life and the animal life. And over the last 100 years, I mean, gosh, our numbers have rocketed until 7 billion of us are all simultaneously exhaling and eating and turning on our lights in our house and starting up the engines in our cars. Obviously, that has an effect on the planet, in amongst all those other things happening. You can see some of those effects from space. You can see with your naked eye. If you come across Mexico City or Beijing, the pollution is visible from space. It's like a gray, ugly smear on the surface of the world. That is man-made local climate change. If you come across Asia, on my very first flight, there was a big inland sea, the Aral Sea. Still a relatively healthy body of water back in the early 90s. But over the last 20 years, because of agricultural policies and irrigation policies, the Aral Sea has gone from being the fourth biggest sea on Earth to being virtually non-existent. It's dried up. And we did it on purpose as a species. We made a conscious decision to allow the fourth biggest sea in the world to turn into a little stinking puddle. What used to be a shoreline is now empty sand and the remains of the fertilizer that were drained into that sea for decades. We're obviously changing the climate at a global level. The key is, who is going to be the person that's going to decide to change something? We can't wait for some other person to change it. They don't have the imperative to do it, especially if they're someone that we elected. If we elected, they're just our representative, and the real motivation comes to each of us individually. That's who has to make the change.
I just got back from China. I was teaching English to young kids between the ages of 4 and 6 years old, and it was pretty interesting because I felt like I made a difference, and I really felt like it was a positive influence on these people, because it wasn't just the language, it was interacting with someone from a different part of the world. And I was teaching around 120 kids, so it was cool because I was teaching them things like y'all. You know, there's some kid in Beijing who's using the word y'all, and it's because of me. I did that, and whether that's positive or negative is up for debate, but I just believe that in this day and age, it's hard to find a good job that makes you feel like you want to wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror, and say, hey, I like what I do.